Growing up, Michael always made sure I knew my place. He was the golden child, valedictorian, full scholarship to MIT, the one mom bragged about to neighbors. I was the practical one, as they called it. The one who worked summers at the warehouse while Michael interned at Fortune 500 companies. Sarah's different, Mom would explain to relatives. Not everyone can be brilliant like Michael. He's more hands-on. The comments stung, but I learned to smile and nod. What they didn't know was that those warehouse summers taught me more about business than Michael's theoretical classes ever could. I watched how supply chains worked, how margins moved, how small inefficiencies cost millions. While Michael studied case studies, I lived them. After college, Michael launched TechFlow Solutions with his MIT buddies. AI-powered logistics optimization for warehouses. Ironically, exactly the industry I knew inside and out. The company exploded. Within 3 years they had contracts with Amazon, FedEx, and Walmart. Michael became the family success story. "My son, the tech entrepreneur," Dad would announce at every gathering. 26 years old and already worth 8 figures. I kept working warehouse jobs, moving between companies, learning systems. Michael would pat my shoulder condescendingly at family events. "Still doing the manual labor, huh? Well, someone has to keep the wheels turning for us innovators." What Michael never bothered to ask was why I kept switching warehouse jobs. He never wondered why I had such detailed knowledge of logistics systems, or why I asked so many specific questions about his algorithms during family dinners. He was too busy enjoying being the genius. The truth was, I'd been quietly building something. Those warehouse jobs weren't just jobs, they were research. Every company I worked for gave me deeper insight into the problems TechFlow claimed to solve. And I started noticing gaps. Big ones. By age 24, I'd developed my own logistics optimization system. Not AI-powered like Michael's. Something better. Something that actually understood how warehouses really worked because I'd worked in them. Something that increased efficiency by 34% instead of TechFlow's claimed 12%. I started small. A consulting firm with warehouse efficiency solutions. 1 client became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became Fortune 100 companies quietly switching from TechFlow to my system because it actually worked better. Within 2 years, my consulting firm was generating $50 million annually. I reinvested everything into technology development and strategic acquisitions. But I kept quiet about it. Wore the same clothes to family gatherings. Drove the same old Honda. Let them think I was still just a warehouse worker. The beauty of my position was that Michael never saw me as competition. When his company needed additional funding for expansion, I made sure my investment firm, hidden behind 3 layers of shell companies, was first in line. Michael thought he was getting money from some anonymous venture capital group. He had no idea his failure sister was bankrolling his entire operation. By the time this Thanksgiving rolled around, I owned 73% of TechFlow Solutions. Michael owned 15%. His MIT buddies split the remaining 12%. But according to the paperwork, he was still CEO of his own company, still the face of his success story. The Thanksgiving dinner started normally. Michael arrived in his new Tesla, talking loudly about his latest contracts. "Just closed a $40 million deal with UPS," he announced to the entire family. "TechFlow is revolutionizing the industry." Everyone gathered around him, asking questions, praising his genius. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, picking at my turkey. "Sarah, how's the warehouse work going?" Aunt Linda asked, the question clearly meant to contrast with Michael's success. "Same as always," I replied. "Steady work." Michael laughed. "That's Sarah. Reliable but not ambitious. Not everyone can build an empire, right, sis?" The conversation continued around me. Michael's company, Michael's success, Michael's bright future. Cousin Jake, who worked in Michael's marketing department, kept throwing glances my way with obvious pity. Then Uncle Robert brought up the topic that changed everything. "Michael, I keep hearing about partnership opportunities in tech. Jake here has been talking about maybe investing in something bigger. You should consider bringing in some family money." Michael's eyes lit up. "Actually, I've been thinking about that. TechFlow is ready for our next growth phase. We're looking at expanding into autonomous vehicle logistics. Could use some additional family investment." "How much are we talking?" Dad asked, leaning forward with interest. "Well, for a significant stake, maybe 5%, we'd be looking at about $10 million. But that's for serious investors only. People who understand the tech industry. Jake practically bounced in his seat. I've got about 2 million I could invest. Been saving for something big like this. That could work, Michael nodded approvingly. Though you'd need to understand this is serious business. Not for everyone. That's when Jake looked directly at me. Good thing Sarah's not interested in business partnerships. No offense, but you'd need real money for something like this. Michael followed Jake's gaze and laughed. Yeah, no offense, Sarah, but this kind of investment opportunity isn't really for your situation. What do you mean? I asked innocently. I mean, this is a $10 million conversation, Michael said, still chuckling. You work at a warehouse. This is venture capital level stuff. Cousin Jake nodded enthusiastically. You're too poor to be a business partner, he said with a grin. Stick to your warehouse job. The table erupted in laughter. Even Mom smiled. Jake's just being honest, dear. Michael's company is for serious investors. I looked around the table at their faces. Michael's patronizing smirk. Jake's obvious pleasure at putting me in my place. Dad's approving nod at what he saw as appropriate boundaries. Mom's gentle but dismissive smile. You're absolutely right, I said quietly, returning to my turkey. I should stick to what I know. The conversation moved on. Michael and Jake spent the next hour planning Jake's investment. Michael explained how Jake would get 0.2% of the company for his $2 million. A steal for family, he said generously. I listened to every word while finishing my dinner in silence. Michael had no idea he was selling Jake shares in a company that I controlled. Jake had no idea he was about to invest in a business that could disappear overnight if I decided to pull my funding. After dinner, I helped Mom clean dishes while the men continued their business talk in the living room. Don't feel bad about not being included, Mom whispered as we loaded the dishwasher. Michael's just trying to protect you from losing money you don't have. I appreciate that, I said, meaning it in a way she couldn't understand. I left early, citing a long day at work tomorrow. Michael barely looked up from his conversation with Jake to wave goodbye. See you at Christmas, sis. Maybe by then you'll have gotten that promotion to supervisor. The laughter followed me out the door. I drove home to my modest apartment, the same one I'd lived in for 3 years, despite being able to afford a mansion. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. My phone showed 17 missed calls from my portfolio manager, David Chin. He'd been trying to reach me all evening, probably with updates on the quarterly reports. David managed my investment portfolio through Meridian Capital, the firm I'd used to acquire my stake in TechFlow. I called him back at 9 p.m. Sarah, thank God, David's voice was urgent. I've been trying to reach you for hours. We need to discuss the TechFlow situation. What about it? Their Q3 reports came in today. The company is in serious trouble. Revenue projections are down 40% from last quarter. They're burning through cash faster than projected, and their main competitor just launched a superior product. Michael Kim doesn't know it yet, but TechFlow is about 6 months from bankruptcy without additional funding. I wasn't surprised. I'd been watching TechFlow's real numbers for months through my majority ownership. Michael was brilliant at marketing and raising money, but terrible at actual business operations. His AI system looked impressive in demos but failed in real-world applications. Companies were quietly switching to competitors, including my consulting firm, but Michael was too focused on fundraising to notice. What are my options? I asked. Well, you own 73% of the company. You could inject additional capital to keep it afloat, but honestly it would be throwing good money after bad. The technology gap is too wide to close. Or, you could liquidate your position. Withdraw your investment and let the company restructure. Michael would lose control, but the technology and employee base might be valuable to an acquirer. I thought about Michael's laughing face at dinner. Jake's dismissive comments. The family's automatic assumption that I was too poor and stupid to understand business. David, I want you to arrange an immediate liquidation of all Meridian Capital holdings in TechFlow Solutions. Full withdrawal. There was a pause. Sarah, that's $94 million. If we pull that out, the company will collapse within weeks. Are you sure? I'm sure. And the timing? We could structure this over several months to minimize. No. I want it done first thing Monday morning. Full withdrawal, immediate notice to TechFlow management. That will cause a lot of chaos. Michael Kim will be completely blindsided. That's the point. David sighed. All right. I'll have the paperwork ready by 8 a.m. Monday. This will definitely make the business news. TechFlow's collapse will be pretty public. Good. One more thing. I want Jake Morrison's pending investment blocked. Put TechFlow in emergency restructuring before he can transfer any funds. Consider it done. Sarah, can I ask why the sudden decision? I thought about how to explain it. Let's just say I had dinner with the CEO tonight, and I've decided I don't want to be in business with him anymore. Monday morning I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when my phone rang at exactly 8:47 a.m. Michael's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Then again. By 9:15 I had 12 missed calls from Michael and 6 from Jake. Finally I answered. Sarah. Michael's voice was panicked, shouting. Sarah, I need to talk to you right now. What's wrong? I asked calmly. Everything. My company, TechFlow. Our main investor just pulled out. $94 million gone. They gave notice this morning and they want everything liquidated immediately. Oh no. That sounds terrible. IT is terrible. We're completely fucked. I don't understand what happened. Meridian Capital was supposed to be a long-term partner. Now they're saying the investment was tied to performance metrics and we didn't meet targets. I could hear papers shuffling in the background, other voices talking rapidly. Michael was clearly at the office, probably in an emergency meeting. I'm so sorry to hear that, I said. Is there anything I can do to help? What? No, Sarah. This is a $94 million problem. I needed to tell someone in the family. Dad's going to kill me. I'm going to lose everything. What about Jake's investment? Didn't he say he had $2 million? Michael's laugh was bitter. Jake? His money is blocked. The company's in emergency restructuring. Nobody can invest now until we figure out this mess. His $2 million wouldn't save us anyway. We need the full 94 back or something close to it. Have you tried calling other investors? Sarah, you don't understand. This isn't about finding $2 or $3 million. This is about replacing a $94 million investment that got pulled overnight. There aren't that many people in the world who have that kind of money just sitting around. That does sound difficult, I agreed. Through the phone I could hear someone calling Michael's name urgently. I have to go, he said. The lawyers are here. Sarah, don't tell the family about this yet, okay? I need to figure out if there's any way to save the company first. Of course. Good luck. I hung up and finished my coffee. My phone immediately buzzed with a text from Jake. Did Michael call you? Something's wrong with TechFlow. My investment got blocked. I texted back. He mentioned some investor problems. Sounds complicated. Jake. Complicated? Sarah, I was going to make serious money on this. This was my chance to get rich like Michael. Me, I'm sure you'll find other opportunities. Jake, easy for you to say. You're not losing $2 million. I almost pointed out that Jake wasn't losing $2 million. He never had the chance to invest it. But I decided to let him stay angry. By Wednesday the news broke publicly. TechFlow Solutions, the revolutionary AI logistics startup, was filing for emergency restructuring after their primary investor withdrew $94 million in funding. Michael's face was all over the tech blogs, looking haggard and defeated. The articles were brutal. Startup founder loses $100 million company overnight. TechFlow Solutions, from rising star to bankruptcy in 72 hours. The fastest rise and fall in tech history. Michael stopped answering my calls. Jake stopped texting. The family group chat went silent. By Friday, I received a call from my consulting firm's CFO. Sarah, you're not going to believe this. 3 of TechFlow's biggest clients just reached out. They want to switch to our system immediately. They're offering a combined contract worth $67 million annually. Which clients? UPS, Amazon, and FedEx. Apparently TechFlow's system was never actually working as advertised. They were manually correcting the AI recommendations behind the scenes. Now that TechFlow is gone, they need real solutions. I smiled. Accept all 3 contracts. And promote Jennifer to head of client relations. She'll handle the transitions. This is going to put us in the top 5 logistics consulting firms in the country. I know. That weekend Dad called me directly. Sarah, have you talked to Michael recently? A few days ago. He mentioned some business troubles. Business troubles? Dad's voice was strained. Sarah, he lost everything. The entire company. He had to move back in with us. He's devastated. I'm sorry to hear that. The thing is, he keeps talking about this investor Meridian Capital. Says they destroyed his company for no reason. He's talking about lawsuits, but the lawyers say there's nothing he can do. The investment was legitimate and they had the right to withdraw. That sounds frustrating. Sarah, I need to ask you something and I want you to be honest with me. My heart rate didn't change. Of course, Dad. Michael is convinced there's something personal about this. He thinks someone specifically targeted his company. He's been going through the investor documentation, trying to figure out who actually owns Meridian Capital. Did he find anything? That's what I'm calling about. The company is owned by a series of shell corporations, but there's a name that keeps appearing in the paperwork. Someone named S. Morrison. Sarah Morrison. I paused for exactly 3 seconds. Dad, Morrison is a pretty common name. I know. But Michael is fixated on this. He keeps saying it's too much of a coincidence. A Morrison destroying his company right after Jake Morrison was supposed to invest. What are you asking me exactly? Dad's voice became gentle. Sarah, honey, I need you to tell me straight. Do you know anything about this Meridian Capital situation? I looked around my modest apartment. At my second-hand furniture and 10-year-old TV. At the warehouse uniform hanging by the door for my shift tomorrow morning. Dad, do you really think I have $94 million to invest in anything? The question hung in the air. Dad's silence stretched long enough that I could hear him thinking it through. His daughter who worked in a warehouse. Who drove a Honda Civic. Who lived in a one-bedroom apartment and worried about grocery bills. Finally he laughed. You're right. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Michael's just desperate to blame someone. The idea that you could be involved in high-level venture capital is, well, it's ridiculous. It's okay, Dad. Michael's going through a lot. He is. Listen, could you maybe call him? He needs family support right now. And maybe don't mention Jake's investment thing. He's pretty bitter about that falling through. Of course. I'll call him tonight. Thanks, Sarah. You're a good sister. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time thinking. Michael was smarter than I'd given him credit for. He'd traced the ownership back far enough to find my name. If he kept digging, if he hired the right forensic accountants, he might eventually connect all the dots. But he wouldn't. Because the one thing Michael could never overcome was his absolute certainty that his little sister was too poor and stupid to outmaneuver him. I called Michael that evening. Sarah. His voice was hollow, exhausted. Dad told me what happened. I'm so sorry. Yeah, well. Everything's gone. 5 years of work just gone. What will you do now? I don't know. Start over, I guess. Maybe get a job at another tech company. Pay off debts. Mom and Dad are letting me stay here for a while. That's good. Family support is important. Sarah, can I ask you something? Sure. Last week at Thanksgiving, when Jake said that thing about you being too poor to be a business partner, I laughed at you. I remember. I feel like shit about that now. Here I am, 30 years old, living with my parents again. And you've got a steady job in your own place. Maybe being practical isn't such a bad thing. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Everyone has ups and downs, I said. You'll figure it out. Yeah. Listen, I'm going to keep investigating this Meridian Capital thing. Something about the timing feels personal, you know? Like someone wanted to destroy me specifically. Maybe it was just bad business. Maybe. But if I find out someone deliberately sabotaged my company. Michael's voice hardened. If someone in our family was involved somehow, that would be unforgivable. Of course it would. Anyway, thanks for calling. It means a lot. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and checked my bank balances. Between my consulting firm and various investments, my net worth had crossed $400 million sometime last month. Tomorrow I'd go back to my warehouse job. I'd wear my uniform and punch my time card and let my coworkers see me as just another employee trying to pay the bills. But tonight I allowed myself a small smile. The family that had spent 15 years dismissing me as the poor failure was about to learn exactly how expensive that mistake had been. Michael's phone was still ringing. And it would keep ringing until he figured out what I'd known all along. Sometimes the person you underestimate the most is the one with the most power to destroy you. He just had to be smart enough to see it. And smart enough to admit that his practical little sister had been playing a game he never even knew existed.
My mother-in-law, Margaret, yelled loudly in the hospital, waving a folder of papers. She's unstable. She needs to be committed right now. I sat quietly, feeling oddly calm, my hand resting on a small USB drive in my pocket. My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 34 years old, and I never thought I'd be in a psychiatric emergency room while my mother-in-law tried to convince doctors that I was losing my mind. But Margaret always found ways to try to get rid of me. She talks to herself all the time, Margaret continued, pretending to be worried. She has angry outbursts and crazy ideas. Just last week, she accused me of messing with her medication. The young doctor looked at me, clearly confused by the difference between Margaret's words and my calm appearance. What Margaret didn't know was that I had been preparing for this for months. I first became suspicious 6 months ago when I overheard her talking on the phone. "Don't worry, I have a plan," she told her friend. "She won't be in my son's life much longer. I just need enough evidence." I married her son, David, 3 years ago. From the beginning, Margaret made it clear that I wasn't the kind of wife she wanted for him. I didn't come from the right family, and I encouraged David to start his own business instead of joining his father's law firm. "She's isolating David from us." Margaret's voice shook as if she were hurt. "He barely visits anymore, and when he does, she watches his every move." I almost laughed at the irony, but the situation was too serious. The truth was, David had chosen to distance himself from his family's controlling behavior. He wanted to run his own sustainable energy business, not become a corporate lawyer like his parents wanted. But Margaret blamed me for his choices. Dr. Stevens, the doctor, looked at the papers Margaret had given him. "These are serious claims, Mrs. Harrison," he said, "but we need to do our own evaluation." Margaret's face tightened for a moment, her perfect act slipping. "But I have proof," she said, showing more papers. "Look at these messages and emails. She's clearly unstable." I had to admit she was thorough. She had created fake evidence, including edited screenshots, fake diary entries, and statements from concerned neighbors who didn't even exist. Dr. Stevens turned to me. "Mrs. Parker, would you like to respond to these accusations?" I smiled calmly, my hand still on the USB drive. "I'd like to speak with you alone, doctor." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "No, she'll lie to you. She's very manipulative." Dr. Stevens stayed calm. "Mrs. Harrison, it's standard to speak to the patient in private. Please wait outside." Margaret tried to argue, but a nurse gently led her to the waiting room. She looked back at me angrily, clearly upset that her plan wasn't going perfectly. Once we were alone, Dr. Stevens asked, "Would you like to tell me your side of the story?" I took out the USB drive. "I'd like to show you this first." He took the drive. "What's on it?" 6 months of evidence showing that my mother-in-law has been trying to make me look unstable. There are videos, phone recordings, and detailed notes of everything she's done, including planning this visit to the hospital. Dr. Stevens plugged the USB drive into his computer. As he watched the videos of Margaret planting fake evidence, listened to her phone calls, and read my notes, his face became serious. "I set up security cameras after I heard her plotting against me," I explained. "Everything is dated and verified. I also have reports from my own doctor and therapist confirming my mental health." Dr. Stevens looked at me. "Mrs. Parker, this is very troubling. But it's about your mother-in-law, not you." Her actions seemed very calculated. I nodded. "That's why I documented everything. I knew she was planning something like this." "Does your husband know?" he asked. "No, he's on a business trip until tomorrow." Margaret knew that and planned this for when he was away. She wanted me committed before he came back. Dr. Stevens made some notes. "You've handled this incredibly well. Most people would have reacted emotionally to such harassment." I knew that's what she wanted, for me to act out and prove her right. So I stayed calm and kept records. Dr. Stevens stood up. "Mrs. Parker, what she did, trying to get you committed with false evidence, is a serious crime. Are you willing to file a formal complaint?" I felt relief wash over me. Yes, it's time she faced the consequences. As he went to make his calls, I thought about Margaret sitting in the waiting room, probably imagining me being taken away in restraints. She had no idea that her plan was falling apart. The USB drive had been my safeguard, my proof of the truth. Now it would be her downfall. I pulled out my phone and texted David. It was time he learned what his mother had been doing. The emergency room was busy, but I stayed calm, ignoring the 3 missed calls from Robert, Margaret's husband. She must have called him when her plans started falling apart. I put my phone on silent as Dr. Stevens returned with 2 police officers. Mrs. Parker, one of the officers said, introducing himself as Detective Morris, "We need your statement about these allegations of attempted false commitment." I nodded, noticing Margaret pacing on the other side of the glass wall. Her face turned pale when she saw the police. "She's been planning this for months," I explained, showing the detective more evidence on my phone. "Here's a recording from last month where she talks about getting me out of the picture with her friend Sandra. And these are emails she sent to doctors, trying to create a fake history of mental issues for me." Detective Morris looked through the evidence, his expression grown serious. "This is detailed. The amount of planning is worrying." My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Landing early. What's going on? Dad called saying Mom's at the hospital with you?" I quickly replied, "I'm fine. Your mom tried to have me committed. Come to Memorial Hospital. Bring your laptop." Dr. Stevens asked, "Would you like us to speak with Mrs. Harrison now?" Before I could respond, Margaret stormed into the room. Her calm act was gone. "Why are the police here? This is a private family matter." Detective Morris faced her. "Mrs. Harrison, we need to talk about your attempt to falsely commit your daughter-in-law to a psychiatric facility." Margaret's face twisted with anger. "I was trying to help her. She's unstable. She's been spying on me. Isn't that proof she's paranoid?" I couldn't help but smile. "No, Margaret. It shows I was ready. Every time you showed up uninvited, planted fake evidence, or plotted against me, it's all recorded." Her face turned red with rage. "You little mother." David's voice cut through the tension. He stood in the doorway, laptop in hand, his face filled with confusion and anger. "What did you do?" Margaret's demeanor changed instantly. "David, thank goodness you're here. I was just trying to help Olivia. She's not well. I was only—" "Stop," David interrupted firmly, setting up his laptop. "I want to see all this evidence." For the next half hour, David watched the security footage of Margaret sneaking around our house. He listened to her phone conversations where she plotted against me and read her manipulative emails to doctors. With each piece of evidence, his face grew darker. "You did all of this?" David asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "You tried to get my wife committed." Margaret's eyes filled with fake tears. "I was protecting you. She's changed you, turned you against us, convinced you to throw away your future on that stupid energy business." David cut her off. "My business is successful. I'm happy. Olivia supports me. The only one tearing this family apart is you." Detective Morris spoke up. "Mrs. Harrison, you'll need to come to the station to make a formal statement." Margaret's plan was crumbling, her perfect image shattered. Her son was seeing her true colors for the first time. "David," she begged, "you can't let them do this. I'm your mother." "Yes," David said quietly, his eyes cold. "Which makes this even worse." He looked at me. "Olivia, do you want to press charges?" I looked at Margaret, seeing not a powerful enemy, but a desperate, broken woman. "That depends on Margaret. If she agrees to get counseling and keep her distance, we can handle this privately. But if not—" Margaret's mouth dropped open. "You're blackmailing me?" I shook my head. "No, I'm giving you a chance to fix this before it gets worse. It's your choice." Margaret realized she was out of options. Her shoulders slumped, her fight gone. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll get counseling." David wrapped his arm around me. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "I had no idea she could do this." The police took Margaret's statement, and Dr. Stevens documented her attempt to falsely commit me. It was over. Her plan had failed, undone by the very things she accused me of. Careful observation and preparation. As the police led Margaret out, David turned to me. "How did you stay so calm through all of this?" I smiled, thinking of the months of planning, the careful collection of evidence, and the patience it took. Sometimes the best way to win is to let someone think they're winning, until they lose everything. 3 months after Margaret tried to have me committed, life slowly returned to normal. Things were different though. Margaret went to counseling every week, just as she had promised. David added more security to our house, and family gatherings felt different now, quieter, more careful. One morning, I was having coffee in our backyard when David handed me an envelope. "Letter from Mom," he said. As part of her therapy, Margaret wrote me letters every week to practice better communication and respect boundaries. The letter began, "Dear Olivia, today in therapy, we talked about control and why I felt the need to have it. I realized my actions weren't really about you. They were about my own fear of losing influence over David's life." At first, her letters were full of excuses, but over time, they became more sincere, showing she was trying to understand and make things right. It would take a while for me to trust her again, but I appreciated her effort. "How is she doing?" I asked David. He still met with his mom once a week, but only in public places as we agreed. "Better," he said, sitting beside me. "She actually asked about my business yesterday. No comments about law school or my wasted potential. It's progress, I guess." The hospital incident had forced a lot of truths into the open. David finally talked to his father about all the years of pressure and control. Robert, shocked by Margaret's actions, started going to counseling with her. Their marriage was changing too, as Margaret learned to let go of some control. Sandra, who had helped Margaret with her plan, sent me a long apology email, admitting what she did and saying she was sorry. I forgave her but kept my distance. Some things just couldn't go back to how they were before. My phone buzzed with a message from Margaret. "Would you meet for coffee next week? My therapist thinks it's time we talked face to face. Only if you're ready." I showed David the message. 3 months ago, this would have felt like a trap. Now, it seemed like a genuine attempt to make peace. "It's up to you," David said, squeezing my hand. No pressure. I thought about the USB drive with all the evidence I had gathered, still locked in our safe. I hadn't needed it since the day at the hospital, but knowing it was there made me feel safe. "I'll meet her," I decided. "In public during the day, and I'll drive myself." David smiled. "You're setting good boundaries. Your therapist would be proud." The next week, I arrived at the coffee shop early and picked a table where I could see both exits. Old habits die hard. Margaret arrived right on time. She looked the same, but her eyes were softer, less sharp. "Thank you for coming," she said as she sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." Honestly, I wasn't sure either, I admitted. We sat in awkward silence until our coffee arrived. Margaret spoke first. "I've been trying to understand why I felt so threatened by you. My therapist says it's because you represented change. I fought so hard to keep control that I nearly ruined everything." I stirred my coffee, thinking before I spoke. You know what's funny? If you had just given me a chance, you would have seen that I never wanted to take David away from his family. I just wanted him to live his life the way he chose. Margaret sighed. "I see that now. Seeing him succeed in his business, seeing how happy he is. I was wrong." We talked for almost 2 hours, facing hard truths and setting new boundaries. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As we got ready to leave, Margaret hesitated. "That day at the hospital," she said, her voice shaky, "you could have pressed charges. You could have ruined me. Why didn't you?" I thought about the USB drive and the months I spent gathering evidence. Because winning isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about giving them a chance to change. Margaret looked at me, understanding in her eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No," I agreed. "But I'm giving it anyway. Don't waste it." That night, I told David about the meeting. "It's strange," I said, "but I think I understand your mother better now than I did before." "Well, you're both stubborn and strategic," he teased. "You just use your powers for good." I laughed, thinking about how differently things could have turned out. I could have used the evidence to destroy Margaret's reputation and tear the family apart. Instead, it forced everyone to face the truth and grow from it. A year later, I deleted all the recordings and videos. Not because I fully trusted Margaret, but because I no longer needed them. We had built something new, not quite friendship, but mutual respect. Margaret still sent me letters every week, but now they were about her progress in therapy and genuine questions about our lives. She even started volunteering at a women's shelter, using her need for control to help others regain theirs. Sometimes the best victory isn't defeating your enemy, but helping them change. Margaret's plan to have me committed had failed, but in the end, it brought about the changes we all needed. "No regrets?" David asked, noticing my thoughtful look. "None," I replied with a smile. Sometimes a broken plan is exactly what it takes to fix what's truly broken. They deserve to know the truth. Jessica's voice came from the half-open door of my kids' playroom. Your mom isn't really your mom. She's been lying to you. I froze in the hallway, gripping the laundry basket so hard my knuckles turned white. Through the crack in the door, I saw my sister-in-law sitting with my 2 kids, pretending to care while she tried to turn them against me. My name is Olivia Parker, and I'm 35 years old. I never thought I'd have to defend my relationship with my own children, especially from Jessica. She's been spreading rumors about me ever since I married her brother James 8 years ago. But Mommy takes care of us, my 7-year-old daughter, Emma, said in a small voice. She makes my lunch and reads me stories. Jessica smiled sweetly. Nannies do that too, honey. It doesn't mean she's your real mom. I took a deep breath to steady myself. My 5-year-old son, Lucas, sat quietly, his big blue eyes filled with confusion. The same blue eyes that looked just like mine. Interesting take, Jessica, I said, pushing the door open. My voice was calm, even though I was furious inside. Jessica jumped and turned to face me, clearly surprised. Olivia, I didn't hear you come in. Obviously, I replied, setting down the laundry basket. Kids, why don't you go help Daddy set up for dinner? He needs help with those new placemats you picked out. Emma and Lucas hesitated, then ran off, giving me worried glances as they went downstairs. I waited until they were out of earshot before turning back to Jessica. How dare you, I said quietly. How dare you try to turn my children against me? Jessica stood up and smoothed her jeans. I'm just telling them the truth. Everyone knows James married you when Emma was just a baby, and then suddenly you had Lucas. It looks suspicious. I almost laughed at how ridiculous she sounded. Suspicious? I have hospital records and plenty of witnesses who would disagree. Jessica crossed her arms. DNA doesn't lie. And your blue eyes don't match anyone in our family. Get out of my house, I said, my voice cold and steady. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize for your lies. You can't keep me from seeing my niece and nephew, Jessica argued. James won't let you. We'll see about that. After she left, I sat in a playroom surrounded by my kids' toys and drawings. Every one of them was signed from Mommy in their wobbly handwriting. 8 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, and hugs. Jessica thought she could erase all of that with her lies. I picked up my phone and called a number I had saved months ago, back when Jessica first started gossiping about my children's parentage. Dr. Morrison's office, a friendly voice answered. Hi, this is Olivia Parker. I'd like to schedule that DNA test we talked about. Of course, Mrs. Parker. We can see you tomorrow morning. Perfect, I said, looking at a family photo on the wall. And could you rush the results? I don't care about the cost. That night, after giving my kids extra hugs and stories, I found James in his study. He looked up from his laptop, concerned. The kids were quiet at dinner. Is something wrong? I closed the door behind me. Your sister stopped by today. James sighed, rubbing his forehead. What did she do this time? She told our children that I'm not their real mother. His face darkened. She did what? I explained what I heard, watching his jaw tighten. James and I met when Emma was 6 months old, after her biological mother abandoned her. We fell in love, got married, and I adopted Emma before giving birth to Lucas 2 years later. I'll talk to her, James said, reaching for his phone. This needs to stop. Wait, I said, putting my hand on his. I have a better plan. But I need you to trust me. He looked at me for a moment, then nodded. Always. The next morning, I went to Dr. Morrison's office for the DNA test. It was quick, just a cheek swab. As I left, I made one more call. Hi, Jessica. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, I said, keeping my voice light. You're right, DNA doesn't lie. Why don't you come over next Friday? We can look at the results together. She paused. Fine, but don't expect me to apologize when I'm proven right. I smiled. Oh, I'm not expecting that. Not yet. As I drove home, I thought about the other set of results that would be arriving with mine. Jessica had recently taken a DNA test too, and working as a nurse at the hospital had its perks, like knowing which tests were being done and on whom. Jessica had her own secrets, ones she was trying to hide by spreading lies about me. But in 1 week, the truth would come out. Some lies come back to haunt the ones who tell them. I pulled into the driveway, watching Emma and Lucas play outside with James. My children in every way that mattered. And soon, everyone would know that too. The week felt like it would never end. Every night, I hugged my kids a little tighter during bedtime stories, trying to see if Jessica's words had affected them. Emma was more clingy than usual, and Lucas watched me with curious eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. "Mommy," Emma asked one night as I tucked her in, "why did Aunt Jessica say those mean things?" I sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her dark hair that looked just like her father's. Sometimes people say hurtful things because they're unhappy inside, but that doesn't mean those things are true. "Daddy said you picked me," she whispered, hugging her stuffed rabbit close. I smiled and kissed her forehead. "I did. I chose you when I adopted you, and then we were blessed with Lucas. Being a mom isn't just about DNA, it's about love." On Thursday afternoon, 2 envelopes arrived. My hands trembled as I held them. One was my DNA test, which confirmed what I already knew. The other was Jessica's genetic screening, the secret she was trying to hide. I put both envelopes in my desk drawer, ready for tomorrow's showdown. That night, James found me looking at old photos in our bedroom. He sat beside me, concern in his eyes. "You okay?" I showed him a picture from the hospital when Lucas was born. Jessica was there that day. She saw me give birth. How can she say he isn't mine? James put his arm around me. "She's been jealous of you from the start. I think she's scared of losing her place in Emma's life." "But I never tried to replace anyone," I said. "I just love them both." "I know," he whispered. "That's what scares her." Friday morning was bright and clear. I set up coffee and pastries in the living room, arranging everything carefully. James took the kids to school, giving me time to prepare. At exactly 10 o'clock, Jessica showed up, perfectly dressed and ready for the fight. "Come in," I said calmly. "Coffee?" She looked at me suspiciously but followed me inside. "Let's get this over with. Where are the results?" I poured her a cup of coffee. "First, let's talk about why you're doing this." "Doing what?" she snapped. "Telling the truth." I sat across from her, studying her face. "No, trying to break my bond with my children." "Is it because you're afraid of your own secret getting out?" Her cup rattled against the saucer. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" I took out both envelopes. One is my DNA test, proving that Lucas is biologically mine and that I adopted Emma. The other, I paused, watching her face go pale, is your genetic screening. Her eyes widened. You had no right. "And you had no right to lie to my kids," I shot back. "Here's the deal. You're going to open my DNA results first and then apologize to my children for lying to them. And if I refuse," I tapped the second envelope, "then everyone will find out about your own genetic condition, the one you're so desperate to hide." Jessica looked at the envelopes, her hands trembling. Realizing she was trapped, she reached for the first one. The DNA results were clear. She read them twice, her face getting paler each time. "This doesn't change anything," she whispered, but even she didn't believe it. "It changes everything," I said firmly. "You have a choice. Make this right, or I'll open the other envelope." Tears filled her eyes. "I was trying to protect our family." "No, you were trying to protect yourself. But hurting my children wasn't the answer." A tear ran down her cheek. "How am I supposed to face everyone if they find out?" I softened my voice. "The same way I face challenges, with truth and love. Your genetic condition doesn't define you, but your actions do." She looked at the second envelope, fear in her eyes. "If I apologize and make things right, will you keep this private?" I reached out and took her hand. "Yes, because no matter what, you're still family." That afternoon, when Emma and Lucas came home from school, Jessica was waiting with me in the living room. Her makeup was perfect, but she looked different, softer, almost nervous. I took a deep breath. "Kids, Aunt Jessica has something to say." Emma held her backpack tight, half hiding behind me, while Lucas stood tall, his little chin up. My brave kids, already so protective of our family. Jessica got down on her knees so she was at their level. "I need to say sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "What I said about your mommy, it was wrong." "You made Emma cry," Lucas said, his hand gripping mine. "I know," Jessica whispered, her eyes sad. "I was wrong to say those things. Your mommy is your real mommy in every way that matters. She loves you more than anything, and I never should have made you doubt that." Emma peeked out from behind me. Then why did you say those mean things? Jessica looked at me, then back at the kids. Sometimes grown-ups say hurtful things when they're sad or scared. But that doesn't make it right. I love you both, and I'm so sorry for hurting you. The kids looked at her, their faces serious as they thought about her words. Then Emma stepped closer and gently patted Jessica's hand. Mommy says we should forgive people when they say sorry and mean it. Tears filled Jessica's eyes. Your mommy is very wise. That night, after the kids were in bed, Jessica stayed behind. She stood by her car, her shoulders tense. Thank you, she said softly, for keeping my secret and giving me a chance to make this right. I nodded. We all have struggles, but we don't have to face them alone. She hesitated. Would you come with me to my next doctor's appointment? I've been scared to go by myself. I surprised us both by hugging her. Of course. That's what family does. Over the next few months, things changed. Jessica's test results had shown a genetic condition that terrified her. Her actions had come from fear and wanting to control something when everything else felt out of control. I went with her to appointments and helped her research treatments. As she faced her fears, she started to change. She was less sharp, less competitive. She joined us more often for family dinners, and this time she was present in a real way, not trying to come between me and the kids. One Sunday afternoon, I found her helping Emma with an art project. They were surrounded by glitter and paper, laughing together. Look, Mommy, Emma said, showing me a colorful family tree. She had included everyone. Me, James, Lucas, both sets of grandparents, and Jessica. Family wasn't just about blood. It was about love and choice. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I said, meeting Jessica's eyes. She smiled, a genuine, warm smile. Emma wanted to understand what family means, Jessica explained. And I think I needed that lesson too. Later, as we watched the kids play outside, Jessica admitted, I used to be jealous of you. It seemed so easy for you to fit into this family, to be their mom. I thought that if I could prove you didn't belong, it would make me feel more secure. And now? I asked. She watched Lucas showing off his superhero moves, his face glowing with pride. Now I see that love isn't something you have to compete for. There's enough for all of us. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked, Is Aunt Jessica okay now? She's working on it, I said, stroking her hair. Just like we all try to be better every day. I'm glad she's not sad anymore. Emma mumbled, her eyes closing. And I'm glad you're my mommy. Me too, baby, I whispered. Me too. In the end, it wasn't DNA that made us a family. It was our choice to love, to support, and to forgive each other. Jessica's journey became part of our story, not one of anger and hurt, but one of healing and growth. Your mother is dead to us. Amanda's voice slithered through the air like poison as she knelt before my children, her lips curled in a wicked smirk. Your dad's new wife is your real mom now. Isn't that right, kids? Emma, just 8 years old, pressed her trembling hands to her ears, while 6-year-old Lucas clutched his sister's arm, his sobs silent but gut-wrenching. I stood frozen in the doorway of my ex-husband's house, my pulse roaring in my ears. I had come to pick them up from their weekend visit, only to walk into this. That's enough, Amanda, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady despite the fury surging inside me. Years of medical training had taught me how to maintain control in the face of chaos. Emma, Lucas, get your bags. We're leaving. Amanda turned to me, her manicured nails tapping against the granite countertop, her expression dripping with satisfaction. Oh look, the abandoned wife finally graces us with her presence. Her eyes flicked over me, searching for cracks in my armor. How does it feel knowing Mark traded you in for someone younger? Prettier? I ignored her. She wasn't worth my breath. My children were. Come on, sweethearts, I murmured, kneeling to their level. Mom's here now. It had been 6 months since Mark walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of our marriage for his perky, wide-eyed dental hygienist, Jessica. The divorce had been brutal, but I had fought to keep things civil for the sake of my children. Amanda, however, had waged a private war, one she intended to win by turning Emma and Lucas against me. We barely made it to the car before Lucas broke the silence. Aunt Amanda said you didn't love us enough to keep our family together, he whispered, his little fingers curling tightly around mine. The words gutted me. I crouched in front of him, brushing his tear-streaked cheek with my thumb. Lucas, sweetheart, listen to me. Sometimes grown-ups stop loving each other, but that has nothing to do with how much we love you. I will always, always love you and Emma more than anything in this world. Emma stood a few feet away, her arms crossed. At 8, she was trying to make sense of something far beyond her years. Then why did Daddy leave? Why does he love Jessica more than us? My throat tightened. Get in the car, baby, I said gently. We'll talk about this at home. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw Amanda standing at the window, watching, smirking. She had resented me from the beginning, the ambitious trauma surgeon who had put herself through medical school while her brother was still finding himself. When Mark left, she had finally been set free to spit out the venom she had kept bottled up for years. The drive home was thick with silence, heavy with questions too painful to answer in a single car ride. I thought about the years of Amanda's snide remarks, the whispered accusations that my career had made me a bad wife, the way she had delighted in my downfall. Back home, I made hot chocolate, the ritual that had always soothed my children's worst days. As they clutched their mugs, I searched for the right words. You know how sometimes at school, you might stop being friends with someone? I asked gently. It doesn't mean either of you is bad, just that you've grown apart. That's what happened with Daddy and me. But that doesn't change how much we both love you. Emma frowned. Aunt Amanda says Daddy chose Jessica because she's younger and prettier. I exhaled slowly, suppressing the ache those words ignited. Beauty isn't just about looks, sweetheart. It's about kindness, about how you treat people. It's about love. Lucas climbed onto my lap, pressing his chocolate-sticky cheek against my shoulder. I don't want a new mom. I want you. I wrapped both of them in my arms, holding them as tightly as I could. And you have me. Always. That night, after I tucked them into bed, I sat alone in my home office, staring at the framed family photos I still couldn't bring myself to take down. My phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. The kids deserve better than a mother who puts her career first. They're better off with Jessica. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. The insults, the manipulation, the emotional warfare. Something told me I would need this record soon. And I was right. Because what came next would test everything I believed about love, about justice, and about how far I would go to protect my children. 3 months passed in a blur of hospital shifts, custody exchanges, and the exhausting effort of rebuilding my children's confidence. Emma and Lucas were in therapy, slowly unraveling the tangled emotions of their father's betrayal and Amanda's relentless poison. I documented every cruel remark, every manipulative whisper, building a case to limit their exposure to her toxicity. Then came the night that changed everything. I was midway through a grueling 12-hour shift in the ER when the double doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in, their voices sharp and urgent. Female, mid-30s, severe allergic reaction. Airways closing fast, she's crashing. I turned and the world tilted. Amanda lay on the gurney, her face grotesquely swollen, gasping for breath. Behind her, my ex-husband Mark kept pace, his face ashen. She ate something with shellfish, he stammered. She didn't know. Dr. Carter, the head nurse, interrupted. We need you now. For one split second, I hesitated. The woman before me, the one now clawing at her throat, fighting for air, had spent months trying to tear my children from me. Just last week, she had told Emma that I chose work over my family, that I wanted to be away from them. Now her life was in my hands. Get me an epinephrine injection, I ordered, pushing everything aside, and start an IV line. I wasn't a mother in this moment. I wasn't the woman she had tried to break. I was a doctor, and doctors saved lives, even when they didn't deserve it. Dr. Carter, her throat's completely closed. No time. No hesitation. Emergency tracheotomy. Now. Mark paled. Wait. Alex is doing the surgery. Can't someone else? There isn't time, I snapped, already making the first incision. She'll die if we wait. The next 20 minutes were a storm of precision and adrenaline. My hands never wavered. My mind stayed sharp. I shut out the memories, the barbed insults, the gleeful jabs, the damage done to my children, and did what I was trained to do. And then, her breathing steadied. The immediate danger passed. She's stable, I announced, stripping off my gloves. Start her on antihistamines. Keep her overnight. As I turned to leave, Mark caught my arm. Alex, thank you. I know things haven't been. I took an oath. I interrupted, my voice steel. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other patients. I made it halfway down the hallway before ducking into an empty consultation room. My hands trembled as the adrenaline wore off. I had just saved the life of the woman who had spent the last year trying to destroy mine. The confrontation. The next morning, as I finished my shift, Amanda's nurse approached me. She's asking for you. Want me to tell her you're unavailable? I should. But something in me whispered go. When I stepped into Amanda's room, she was propped up in bed, the swelling in her face reduced. She looked smaller, defenseless without her usual armor of makeup and contempt. How are you feeling? I kept my tone neutral, professional. Like I almost died, she rasped, and like I owe you my life. I flicked through her charts. The emergency team did their job. Be more careful about what you eat. Alex, she said softly. I stilled. She had never called me by my name before. I know what I've done to you. To the kids. She swallowed. Horrible doesn't even begin to cover it. I sighed. This isn't necessary. It is, she insisted. Because when I was lying there, unable to breathe, all I could think about was how cruel I've been. How I've hurt those kids because I was jealous of you. I blinked. Jealous. Tears welled in her eyes. You've always been. Everything I wasn't. The successful doctor, the amazing mother. Even after Mark left, you held it together. I wanted to prove you weren't as perfect as everyone thought. I wanted to hurt you. By hurting my children? My voice wavered. Her lip trembled. I was wrong. So wrong. And then last night, you saved me without hesitation. You had every reason to walk away, but you didn't. I sank into the chair beside her bed, exhaustion pressing down on me. Amanda, I'm not perfect, I murmured. I've made mistakes. Plenty of them. But my children? They're the one thing I've done right. And watching you try to turn them against me, that's been the hardest thing I've ever endured. She reached for my hand. And this time, I didn't pull away. I'm so sorry, Alex. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am truly, deeply sorry. For the first time since meeting Amanda, I saw something real. Not malice. Not manipulation. Just regret. I exhaled slowly. The kids have therapy on Thursday. If you're really sorry, you'll tell them the truth. About everything. She nodded, tears spilling over. I will. I promise. As I left her room, something inside me shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something lighter. The smallest possibility that maybe, just maybe, my children wouldn't have to grow up carrying the weight of Amanda's hatred. The aftermath. That night, as I tucked Emma and Lucas into bed, Emma hesitated. Mom, is Aunt Amanda going to be okay? Yes, sweetie, I murmured, smoothing her hair. She's going to be fine. Lucas blinked sleepily. Did you save her? I smiled faintly. I did what doctors do. I helped someone who needed help. Emma frowned. Even though she's mean to us. I thought for a moment. Sometimes, I said carefully, being kind to people who haven't been kind to us changes things in ways we never expect. As I turned out their lights, I realized how true that was. Tomorrow would bring new battles. Amanda's apology didn't erase the past. But for the first time in months, I had hope. Hope that wounds could heal. That truth could mend what lies had broken. That maybe, just maybe, kindness had the power to change everything. Thursday arrived faster than I expected. In the waiting room of Dr. Peters' office, Emma and Lucas sat quietly, coloring while we waited for Amanda. When she walked in, she lacked her usual confident stride. Instead, she clutched her purse as if it were a shield, her eyes searching the room nervously. Aunt Amanda. Emma looked up, surprised. Are you sick again? No, sweetheart, Amanda replied softly. I'm here to talk to you and Lucas. To tell you some very important things. Dr. Peters welcomed us into her office, arranging the chairs in a small circle. Lucas immediately climbed into my lap, while Emma sat between Amanda and me, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. Amanda has something she'd like to share with you both. Dr. Peters began gently. Remember how we talked about feelings being complicated and how it's okay to feel different things at the same time? Both children nodded. Amanda took a deep breath. Emma, Lucas, she began, her voice trembling slightly. I need to tell you that I was very wrong about a lot of things. I said things about your mom that weren't true, and that wasn't fair to you or to her. Lucas tightened his grip on my hand, like when he said Mommy didn't love us. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. Yes, exactly like that. Those were lies, and I'm so sorry I told them. Your mom loves you more than anything in the world. She's an amazing mother who would do anything for you. Emma frowned, her voice sharp with hurt. Then why did you say those mean things? Why did you try to make us love Jessica more? Amanda swallowed hard. Because I was jealous, she admitted. I was angry about things that had nothing to do with you, and I took it out on you and your mom. That was wrong of me. As Amanda continued, she apologized for specific moments, unraveling the web of lies she had spun. I watched as Emma and Lucas absorbed her words, their expressions shifting between confusion, hurt, and something softer, understanding. Your mother proved what kind of person she is when I was in the hospital. Amanda continued. She saved my life, even though I had been horrible to her. That's the kind of person your mom is, someone who helps others, even when they don't deserve it. Emma turned to me, her wide eyes filled with wonder. Is that true, Mom? Did you really save Aunt Amanda? I nodded. It's what doctors do, honey. We help people who need help. Even mean people? Lucas asked innocently. Even mean people, I confirmed. Because sometimes people can change and become better. Dr. Peters guided the conversation, helping Emma and Lucas express their feelings. Amanda listened, really listened, as they shared how her words had confused and hurt them. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, Amanda told them sincerely. What I did was wrong, and I understand if it takes time to trust me again. But I promise I'm going to try to be a better aunt to you both. As the session ended, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted slightly. It wasn't perfect. The past couldn't be undone. But it was a start. In the parking lot, Amanda hesitated before speaking. Alex, I've been thinking. I want to talk to Mark about modifying the custody arrangements. The kids shouldn't have to go through so many changeovers. They need more stability, with you. I studied her, looking for any sign of manipulation, but found only sincerity. Thank you, I said simply. Over the next few months, things shifted. Amanda kept her word, not just stopping her campaign against me, but actively working to repair the damage. She even spoke to Mark, encouraging him to be more present in the kids' lives instead of trying to replace me with Jessica. One Sunday afternoon, while I was in the garden with Emma and Lucas, Amanda stopped by, holding out a small paper bag. Peace offering, she said hesitantly. Seed packets. I thought the kids might like to learn about growing their own food. Emma, who had been wary of Amanda's changes, brightened. Can we plant tomatoes, Mom? Like the ones in the hospital garden you told us about. As I watched Amanda kneel beside them, patiently explaining how to plant each seed, I realized something. Change wasn't always grand gestures. Sometimes it was in the quiet moments, the small steps toward something better. That night, as I tucked the kids into bed, Emma asked, Mom, is it okay that I'm starting to like Aunt Amanda again? I smoothed her hair. Of course it is, sweetheart. People can change when they really want to. And it seems like Aunt Amanda really wants to. Because you saved her? Lucas piped up from his bed. I thought for a moment. No, I said softly. I think sometimes people save themselves. They just need a reason to try. As I closed their bedroom door, I exhaled. The emergency that had brought Amanda to my operating table hadn't just saved her life. It had given our family a chance to heal. There were still difficult moments, still wounds that would take time to mend. But we were moving forward. And sometimes that was the biggest victory of all.